Hello, YouTube and friends, followers, and new viewers. Today I want to talk about sweep picking. One of my favorite techniques. It goes back to when I was a teenager and I heard, I was just fairly new to the guitar and I heard Yngwie Malmsteen play, and it kind of blew me away. Kind of silly because at the time the first album I heard was Odyssey, which is more poppy than his previous stuff. So you'd hear this real, like, kind of hard rock, almost pop metal song, and then a ripping guitar solo. And it kind of turned me into his playing and really got me going as far as like technique and learning scales and everything too. But one of the things I picked up early on from him is sweep picking. And it goes back to this song. He did it all over the album. He did it all over all the solos. But the one that caught me was the main riff in Riot in the Dungeons. It's a harmonized thing, but the one I learned, the arpeggio I learned, was a D minor arpeggio, and it's D, F, and A. I'm playing the D on the 17th fret of the A string, the F on the 13th or the 15th fret of the D string, and then I'm playing the A on the 14th fret of the G string. So it's just those three notes. No, the whole riff, there's more to it. There's like something like that, right? Get a little more gain. That's kind of the idea, and there's a little run up at the end, which I'm not going to worry about right now. But it's because I haven't played in a long time, and I'll have to relearn it quick. But that bit, that little DFA thing with the little tail on it was really big, because I realized pretty quickly that I'd opened the door to something that was really sweet. And when I started to nail that, I was like, oh, I can do this, you know. That down through those three notes in a row was really helpful. Later on, I started to build on it, and I found out that you could continue the same three notes on the next next couple strings. So let's add to that and build a full-on arpeggio shape we can practice our sweeping with. So we've got, because you want to go down and up, and the upstroke is a little harder to articulate because it's counter to gravity, and you got to think a little bit and get used to it. But the downstroke part is it comes pretty quick, and let's map our way through this. So you got that 17, 15, 14 thing. Now I'm going to do the same three notes, D, F, and A, but I'm going to do them on the B and E strings. And I'm going to do that by playing the 15th fret of the B string for this D. F will be played at the 13th fret of the E. And then A is at the 17th fret of the E string. Now right there, I've got a little shape that is super common. It's the same, think about Mr. Crowley, the Ozzy Osbourne song where Randy Rhoads played the outro solo, this little... Those first three notes, that little bit there, is actually a D minor arpeggio, right? The other arpeggios that happen are, different chords, which is really cool. We'll get into that later. But anyway, we're going to tack that little 15, 13, 17 triangle kind of thing onto our existing 17, 15, 14 deal. So 17 on the A, 15 on the D, 14 on the G, 15 on the B, and then 13 and 17 on the E. So if I go through this slowly... I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 notes that I just played right there. Just like that. They're the same three notes played twice. Like I said, you want to get good at the downstroke and kind of start to articulate that. One thing to avoid is picking picking each note with an individual pick stroke. You want to drag your pick through, you know. So I'm downstroking all those notes except that 17. I'm popping my pick up, you know. Now you can do that same shape on those same 5 strings anywhere. And it just, when you move it, it changes the chord name. So I'm at D minor now. If I go down a half step, if I go a fret towards the headstock, it's now C sharp minor. Take it down another C, and then B minor, and then B flat minor, A minor, and so on. You just walk that same shape down, and it's just a minor chord with a different letter name. A minor, you know, and so on. It just depends on what note you're playing on the A string. That's kind of a quick way to find the root. Or the other root note is on the B string, whatever note that might be, depending on how you approach it. Anyway, so what I did after that, I found you could turn that around if you used a hammer-on. There's other players that do different things. Michelangelo Badio, for instance, will pick everything. He'll sweep through and then pick that note and then pick the next one and then pick them all. A lot of players will do like a hammer-on at the top, and this is what I did early on. I did the shape, the 17, 15, 14, 15, 13, 17 guy, this guy. I hammered onto that. Did a hammer pull at the on the top string. And then after I do the hammer pull, I go back through the shape with upstrokes, with one fluid upstroke. Now, the reason I do that is it's symmetrical. It's got a nice, nice kind of that right there. I did both. I did the pick and the hammer on. So if you pick them all, it sounds like this. You do the hammer pull. I typically do that because I'm more comfortable with it, and I like the way it sounds. But it's really up to you. Basically, go for what it sounds like. Think about, I like this sound versus this sound, and in this case, I like this. And you really base your technique on what you want to hear, not what's comfortable. I'll do it this way just because I like doing it that way. That's kind of a sweet way to do it. It goes really fast, which is fun, in my opinion. And what I'm doing there is I'm doing that same arpeggio shape. I just double up on that little triangle, that little Mr. Crowley triangle thing, before I go down, and it sounds crazy, right? So I haven't left the shape, I haven't done anything new, I just repeated a section of it, and that's a really cool technique. That's a great way to kind of get started in one position and get used to playing a sweep arpeggio, I like the minors. I like the sound of the minor chords. It's really cool to do that. Majors are a little different. And when you map a major out, the fingering's slightly different because you have to change the middle note. The second note in the chord is now the major third. In this case, it'd be F sharp. So if I was going to do the same arpeggio as a major chord, it'd be 17 on the A string, 16 on the D, and then 14 on the G string. So it's the same thing, except that middle note is up a fret from where it was. All right, and then that changes my next shape too. Instead of playing 15, 13, 17, I'm going to play 15 on the B, then 14 and 17 on the E. So we'll play the two next to each other. The minor was this. major is going to look like this. And you want to know both those shapes for sure, because those are the chords that you're going to use a lot, majors and minors, you know. There's diminished and there's other chords where you're going to do, but these two are the big ones to really get you started. And master these because they are the most common chord types in your major scale. The diminished happens once, but the other types of chords happen 3 times each as you map out a scale. All right, so there's your 2 types of chords. Now, let's put these into context a little bit. We're doing a D minor, right? Which is cool because this goes back to my scale videos where I did the major scale in F. D minor and F major are the same scale, so this chord is going to work with all of our stuff that we did in the F major scale. So I'm going to play D minor, but I'm not going to play D major. I'm going to change that to something else that we can use with our D minor chord. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our major shape, that thing that we built here that's like 17, 16, 14, then 15, 14, 17. We're going to move that down to the 15th fret. We're going to play a C major arpeggio, which is 15 on the A, 14 on the D, 12 on the G, 13 on the B, 12 and 15 on the high E. So this. All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to take those 2 ideas because they're different types of chords, and I'm going to play them next to each other, and they will work in that particular case. They work in that key really nice. They work in a couple other keys too, but it relates directly to what we were doing with the scales. So we're going to stay here and think F major, you know, for right now. Oh, wrong. See that? I played a minor and played the major third. So that's something you can do too. Accidents like that sound great. Hang on to them. So that kind of connects those 2 shapes, right? You can, all I did was I played the D minor. I got to the end of that with my upstroke, and I moved down to the 15th fret and then started my C major. Like that. One thing to note when I play this particular exercise, I like to pick it all downs. I get to the high note, I pick that and do a pull off before continuing my sweep on the B string. So it's an upstroke on the high E, pull off, and then, you know, hitting the B string with the first of the upstrokes that continue down to the 5th string. That just gives that a little more clarity and pops that high note in a nice way that makes it sound really good. I can continue on down the scale. I could go to the next chord, which would be at the 13th fret, and it's a major chord, B flat major. So I've got D minor, C major, B flat major. All right, and that's right in key with F major and D minor. So the B flat is played 13 on the A, 12, 13 on the A, 12 on the D, 10 on the G, 11 on the B, and then 10 and 13 on the E string. So like that. It's the same exact shape we played for C major, but just a whole step or 2 frets down towards the headstock. So the whole thing looks like this. I come back up to C and finish with the D. And you can just loop that over and over again. And it sounds really nice. It's got a nice movement. I mean, if you played that as power chords, it'd be like... You know, that's a nice way to think about things, is your chord movement that way, and then continuing on. So if we want to tag on another chord to make that kind of cool and continue, our next chord would be A minor, which is played at the 12th fret. So it's the same shape we played for the D minor, but now starting at the 12th fret. So I'm going to play 12 of the A, 10 of the D, 9 of the G, 10 of the B, and then 8 and 12 of the E. So you get a little bit more stretch than our first minor chord because the frets get bigger as we go this way. But all together we got this. Coming back up. So all together, that's it. Kind of a sweet sound, you know, you get all these different chord types and you get something that sounds very melodic and nice, almost classical in a sense. All right, so from there we're going to go down another whole step to the 10th fret for the G minor chord that occurs in our F major scale. So we take that same shape we played at 17 and at 12, and we're going to apply it now to 10. So I'm going to play 10 on the A string, 10 on the A, we got to get the volume, 10 on the A, 8 on the D, 7 on the G, 8 on the B, and I'm going to play 6 to 10 on the high E string. So all together I've got this. Need more volume. There we go. Coming back up. Like that. So, you know, so you got a really nice sound. Now our chord movement's gone. If we continue on, we'll get to the next chord, which would be F, and it's going to be F major. So now we're covering all our majors and minors in F major. We've got F major, G minor, A minor, B flat, and C major, and then D minor. There are 6 chords of 7. We'll talk about the last chord in a second. So our F major is played at the 8th fret of the A string with our pinky. So we're going to be 8 on the A, 7 on the D, 5 on the G, 6 on the B, 5 and 8 on the E. All together, I got this now. Wrong chord. Did I see that? I did a major and I should have done a minor. Kind of like that. Okay, so that's pretty cool. You hear all these different chord types and it sounds really nice. If playing them in a row like this is really helpful for just getting used to them. You want to mix them up too and come up with some new ideas. That's certainly a great way to come up with kind of cool chord changes. Again, here's the whole thing. I play a lot of G major, so breaking the habit is tricky. So there's that. There's all the way down to F from our D minor. There's the 6 chords in the F major scale that are your basic majors and minors. The last chord that we can do that fits in the scale, that's just your basic triad, is going to be the E diminished chord. And that's going to be played, I'm going to do it in 2 places probably, but if you wanted to do it down here, it's quite a stretch. It's going to be 7 on the A. It's going to be 5 on the D. It's going to be 3 on the G, 5 on the B, 3 on the E, and 6 on the E. And if you remember, everything's the same 12 frets higher, so I can play it at 7 like this, or I can play it at 19 like this. It's the same pattern. So I've got this D minor, C major, E flat major, A minor, G minor, F major, E diminished. I like to go back up to F just to resolve it as an exercise, or come straight back up, all the way up. Like I said about the diminished chord, it's 12 frets higher, so that same shape. So I actually play it there when it sounds really cool. So if I do that, the minor, then the diminished, and then go down, it sounds sweet. So I'm going to do that. So there I did D minor. I did E diminished at the 19th fret. And jump down to C major. And back up to D minor. Kind of a nice progression, right? That's kind of a sweet deal. So you get those 3 different chord qualities in that one section. You can play them any direction, any way you want to. Mix them up however you like. And you can break those down even into smaller triads and play those too. Like I talked earlier about the Mr. Crowley thing. You could do that with all your chord shapes and figure those out and do them as their own idea, So the same. I'm just kind of messing around with the different little triangle shapes in those arpeggios we already did, but I want you to try to do them on your own, see if you can memorize them on your own. Because if I sit here and tell you about all of them and show them all to you, it doesn't really stick. I make my students do this too. As rather than sit there and read the music or let me tell you everything, take the little bit of information I give you and expand upon it on your own. It's going to stay in your brain that much better if you look at the fingerboard and think about where you're going. That's a really good tip. It's that show me, tell me something I'll never remember, show me and I'll never forget kind of thing, I guess. But if you actually put pen to paper, so to speak, it's going to stick a lot better. But that's a little bit about sweeping. There's a bunch of stuff we can do with sweeps. That's just in one key, and that's just using your basic triads using 5 strings. Of course, you can add to that. You can build on it and do 6 strings and different shapes. Like if, for example, I'm not going to get too into this right now. If I did F major, kind of based on what we've done so far. If I start down here at the F note, I could map out something that looks like this. It's going to be F, A, and C is my F major chord. So I can start with something like that. So the cool thing about that is that it incorporated that that F major chord we just did, right? But I also added this stuff to it. So I've got FAC here. So play F and A, 1st and 5th fret of the E string, C on the A string, 3rd fret of the D string for the next F. I play A at the 2nd fret of the G. And then what I like to do is you can stay in one position and play that. Which is fine, but I thought that sounded kind of like, I just didn't like the sound of it, and I didn't like the way it moved. So what I did was when I got to that 3rd fret, or 3rd string, 2nd fret, that A, I slid that to the 5th fret on the G string, and then so I'm at this note, play the 6th fret of the B, 5th and 8th fret of the high E, come back down my F major shape that I learned in the 5-string deal. So I got this long kind of thing that covers from the 1st fret to the 8th fret, which is really cool, you know? And it's the same 3 notes over and over again, but when you play it, it looks crazy impressive, right? Coming back down, I did, let's see, I go down that chord. To the 8th fret, I jump down to the 3rd fret of the A string. Then I finish with the notes I started with. Just like that. And I apply that same idea to all the chords in the scale, the minors and so on. You know, and it's really cool because as you do that, they require a little extra work to get the fingering down because of the different modes that you play with while running through the scale. Anyway, that's a little bit about sweeping. There's a whole lot more I can do with this, and I'm going to do a whole series of videos on sweeping and just cover some really cool techniques and whatnot as we go. But remember, sweeping kind of comes down to articulating with the left hand and just dragging your pick. You know, that's the real trick. And it takes a little time to get used to the coordination that comes into play. But that's a lot of fun. And this is just a couple of things you can mess with for the heck of it. Even if you just practice 1 or 2 of these things, cool. You know, just do what you want with it. But I wanted to throw as much information as I could into this one little video to get you started with the concept of sweeping. There's a whole lot to do with it. I like to sweep, you know. I'll even use it in scalar form where I do like a economy type picking thing. It's basically sweeping through a scale. But I loved it like the sweeping sound. Like throw it right into a scale lick. And it's real common to hear those kinds of things because they fit so nicely. But it makes you sound like you know what you're doing, which is important. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Throw a like on it. And follow our shop at www.brgmusic.com or on Facebook and Instagram. You can stop by if you're in the Des Moines area. We're about 30 miles up Highway 141 from the Des Moines metro area. We got a nice little shop, a lot of stuff for sale, including this sweet Legator overdrive V here. They did 4 of them, and we're lucky enough to have one in store. Super fast, super fun to play. Come in and try our guitars out. Talk shop with us. We're always happy to chill and chat about guitar. Anyway, yeah, visit our website, www.brgmusic.com. Call us at 515-329-0120. Stop in if you're in the area. Throw a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff that you got to do. And we'll be back. Thanks a lot. Have a good Saturday.